I'm going to take it and make it into the best paper airplane I can. So, you should do likewise. Make an airplane. And for those of you who don't know me, I am Brian Musser. I am the Baptist Campus Minister at Drexel University, home of the Dragons, the most dominant mascot in all of NCAA sports. Nothing beats a dragon. Maybe 500 Scarlet Knights, but the first like 250 are French fries. Temple Owls are more like fried chicken. Quakers don't even rate compared to a dragon. They wouldn't even go up against one. So dragons are awesome is pretty much what you're getting out of this as you're making an airplane.
They don't exist.
They don't exist, yeah.
Komodo.
Komodo dragons, yes. Of course, they're not that fierce.
I didn't say they were fierce.
They don't breathe fire or anything like that. Okay, as you're making an airplane, I want somebody who's kind of well along the way to come up and I want to volunteer to show me their airplane. If they think it's a good airplane, if they think it's an awesome airplane, if they think it is the best airplane of the bunch. Somebody who's spent some time making the airplane. And when I say time, I mean the 5 minutes that we have. Does somebody want to volunteer to come up and show me their airplane? Come on up. Cool. Can I see it? So, what's special about the airplane?
Aerodynamically designed. It has a collapsible tip. It's got a pin inside, so it lifts you to the heavens.
Do you think I can hit air with this?
I think there's hair's back there. Okay.
Yeah.
No.
No?
Well, I would go for Sarah. I think you can get her between the eyes.
Okay, cool. Now, what happens if I go like this?
My heart broke. All that work, years of life.
Okay. And this right here, and this was the example, this right here is my best definition of sin. Okay? Fear?
I'm the sinner.
No, I'm the sinner. The airplane is something you made, something you created. And I've just intentionally destroyed in front of all these people out of complete surprise to you.
And enjoy doing it.
I enjoy doing it too, yeah. Intentionally destroyed something you made. My sin not only damaged the airplane, but it affected our relationship. You probably are having some feelings for me right now that you probably don't want to describe up in front of people. But it's this idea that sin not only hurts the airplane, but it also damages the relationship with the maker of the airplane. And this idea that, well, this airplane, you don't think it will hit anybody now. Maybe Chris.
We could try.
Yeah. But it also, yeah, and you want it back?
That's okay.
Okay, and you can sit there.
Thanks.
Yeah. When sin comes in, God has actually two purposes. God wants to restore that which was destroyed by sin. But he also wants to redeem the destroyer. He wants to fix that what was broken and fix the breaker. He does these two things. It is God's responsibility to provide justice for the offended, but it's also God's will and desire to offer grace to the offender. God wants to set loose the captive, but wants to forgive the captor. God needs to deliver the oppressed, but regenerate the oppressor. He wants to free both the slave and the slave master. Now, this has the potential of creating a dilemma for God. What happens when somebody's petition for justice contradicts another person's plea for mercy? To examine this problem, we're going to look at the story in 2 Samuel 12 with David and Bathsheba. And we're going to look at it this way. How can God be David's God and Bathsheba's God at the same time? We're going to start with the first 6 verses. And I'm going to be, I believe I'm reading from the NIV. That's what it says here, so I'm going to trust my notes. The Lord sent Nathan to David. When he came to him, he said, there were 2 men in a certain town, one rich and the other poor. The rich man had a very large number of sheep and cattle, but the poor man had nothing except one little ewe lamb he had bought. He raised it, and it grew up with him and his children. It shared his food, drank from his cup, and even slept in his arms. It was like a daughter to him. Now a traveler came to the rich man. But the rich man refrained from taking one of his own sheep or cattle to prepare a meal for the traveler who had come to him. Instead, he took the ewe lamb that belonged to the poor man and prepared it for the one who had come to him. David burned with anger against the man and said to Nathan, as surely as the Lord lives, the man who did this must die. He must pay for that lamb 4 times over because he did such a thing and had no pity. We'll come back to more of the story later. But David says, the man who did this must die. At first we hear that the king, David, demands death. Then punishment might be lowered to 4 times what has been taken. But simple mistakes can be compensated for. If you accidentally break something to somebody, you should just get them a new one. But sin, willful, intentional acts of destruction, don't seem to be merely able to be compensated for. That person must pay, and retribution is required. We get this. We understand this. We viscerally know this to be true. Justice demands that sin be paid for. Justice demands that the authorities in charge of things punish this crime. Justice requires that God punishes sin. And we know this. We know this especially a lot when we talk about other people's sin. We might not get this so much when we talk about our own. But when we talk about someone else's sin, we understand that sin must be paid for. And we also get this when we go to the extremes with sin. Right now in the news, over at Penn State, Jerry Sandusky. Okay? If Jerry Sandusky is found guilty, maybe more appropriately, when Jerry Sandusky is found guilty, of course, and then if our system found him guilty and then set him free, that would be completely wrong. Things inside of us would hurt. Some of us would just kind of twitch for a couple days. If Jerry Sandusky is found guilty, he must be punished. Justice would require punishment from that situation. It would be unjust of our authorities to find someone like that guilty and then let him go. Adolf Hitler, if we want to go to the furthest extreme, Adolf Hitler. If Adolf Hitler lived long enough to reap the justice, what would justice demand of him? There was no way we could let someone like that not pay for, in some way, the crimes he committed upon the world. But then we get a little bit more interesting. John Newton. John Newton, a guy who owned a slave ship and took 3 Africans from their homeland and transported them to the Caribbean, where they would be slaves or die someplace along the way. His participation in that brutal slave trade. What would justice require of him? We understand this. We understand that there are some things you can do that just need to be punished. The world would not be right if they weren't. And also, David understood that as king, there are some things that he needed to punish. His authority as king required him to punish sin, to take care of injustice, to right wrongs. And in so doing, he also understood that God, because of God's authority and God's place and God's nature and who God is required on a level that when there is sin, God needs to do something about it.